40? We got a double dose of Commander Master's Downshifts for you in this video, folks. I'm combining the green and the artifacts. There were only 4 of each downshifted to common in Commander Masters, so we're going to go over those. Hopping right into it, we'll go ahead and start with Rot Shambler. Rot Shambler is a fungus that costs a green and 1 generic for a 1/1. But it reads, whenever another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Rot Shambler. So something I've seen as a bit of a theme in both black and red is sacrifice. Black has a lot more when it comes to taking a look at how many creatures are in your graveyard. Red has a lot more in the way of trying to facilitate putting them there, as in getting them from the battlefield to the graveyard when you decide, instead of at the cost or at the hand of your opponent's removal. So this kind of gives us another payoff if we're in green-black instead of, say, red-black, where the Blood Aspirant is. So Rot Shambler kind of just helps along in that. It being a fungus isn't really a relevant creature type, so just being another way to facilitate that strategy and give you a little bit of extra synergy for following that. I think that's a plenty of a good reason to downshift this from uncommon in Battle for Zendikar to common in Commander Masters. Moving right along is another big payoff for that self-mill green-black sort of strategy. We've got Crawling Infestation. Crawling Infestation is an enchantment coming in for a green and 2 generic. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may mill 2 cards. Put 2 cards from the top of your library into your graveyard. Whenever 1 or more creature cards are put into the graveyard from anywhere during your turn, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn. Crawling Infestation is going to be great for that Golgari green-black sort of graveyard matters strategy. Going to be putting creatures into your graveyard, getting the Lotleth Giant even more powerful. You're going to be triggering Rot Shambler if you're putting those creatures onto the battlefield and those 1/1 green insects are getting blocked or blocking and going to the graveyard. So Rot Shambler, Crawling Infestation, great cards to add to this Golgari limited strategy, as well as give us something a little bit more to chew on in that vein in Pauper. So downshifting Crawling Infestation from Innistrad Crimson Vow, great call. The next card I want to talk about is one of the 2 cards in Commander Masters that are getting downshifted all the way to common from rare. Crash of Rhino Beetles. Crash of Rhino Beetles originally came to us from Commander 2018, but that set isn't available to us on Magic Online, so they have put Crash of Rhino Beetles into treasure chests, which is why it has that special treasure chest rarity symbol. It was still put into the treasure chests at rare, but this insect is coming to us at the cost of a green and 4 generic mana. For that mana, we get a 5/5 with Trample that has +10/+10 as long as you control 10 or more lands. So another really good payoff for a ramp strategy. It's already a sizable creature and getting exactly a good rate for your mana value, getting a 5/5 for 5 mana, getting the keyword of Trample on top of that, and potentially being a 15/15. Oh my goodness, you're getting so much value for this at common. Interesting it got all the way downshifted, but when we're seeing things that are 5/4s with Trample that give you initiative impacting the format at 5 mana, you got to be pretty good at that mana value in Pauper to be able to do anything. So, not surprised to see something like this downshifted all the way to common, but it will be interesting to see a green ramp strategy taking advantage of this and seeing how quickly they can make it a 15/15. In fact, in the comments below, if you're watching this video after this is released, let me know how quickly you've made Rhino Beetles a 15/15. Turn 2, turn 5, let me see. Let me know in the link in the comments below. The next card I want to talk about is Sky Snare Spider. This spider is going to cost us 2 green and 4 generic, originally printed at Uncommon in Magic Origins. For that rate, we get a 6/6 with Vigilance and Reach. Another really good payoff for the green ramp decks. I know Altasaur with Cascade is a 7-drop, so dropping from a 6/5 Reach Trample into a 6/6 Vigilance Reach seems really, really good. And Vigilance on a sizable body in Pauper is something that should definitely not be overlooked. With the addition of Reach, being able to jump up and block a bunch of those fairies that are swooping around, I think that this card is going to have a huge impact on the format and may even start to see the decline in popularity of those fairy decks. But don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% confident in saying that. But this is a really good card for what you're paying for it. 6 mana for a 6/6 in old school Magic terms is already fantastic on rate, but you also get 2 evergreen keyword abilities. I think this card is going to be great. That wraps it up for the green cards getting downshifted to common and Commander Masters. Let's move on over to the artifacts. First thing first, we've got Campfire coming to us from Commander Legends Baldur's Gate. Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate has not been implemented in Magic Online, meaning that this, much like Spectral Grasp, will be seeing its first playable printing on Magic Online with Commander Masters. Getting downshifted to common from that set for Commander Masters, Campfire is a 1-mana artifact that says pay 1 and tap, you gain 2 life, or you can pay 2, tap and exile Campfire, put all commanders you own from the command zone and from your graveyard into your hand, then shuffle your graveyard into your library. So this card isn't necessarily going to make a huge impact on Pauper. Honestly, I think it's going to be much more useful for the second ability, even though the commanders aren't relevant in Pauper. Being able to shuffle your graveyard into your library is going to keep those green-black Golgari decks from milling themselves out. We don't really have access to, I think Gaia's Blessings last printing was uncommon, so we don't have that to randomly refill our library from almost death on milling ourselves. So Campfire is going to give them a useful way to kind of recharge that library and put the graveyard back into it, because I'm not going to lie to you, I've played Dredge a lot, and milling yourself out is a real concern. So giving a common Dredge deck access to this ability, I think, is going to be a big deal. So definitely keep an eye out for Campfire on your Pauper tables. Next up, we've got Volshock Battle Gear. This uncommon from Mirrodin is getting downshifted to common and Commander Masters. It is a 3-mana artifact equipment that gives equipped creature +3/+3 at the equip cost of 3. So it seems to me like they're trying pretty hard in the white-blue vein to push some sort of equipment artifact matters deck. Downshifting Renowned Weaponsmith is a big hint to that. This is a pretty sizable on-rate equipment as well. It does seem a bit unfortunate for 6 mana to be the barrier just to get +3/+3, but Pauper's an interesting place and has a couple of ways to equip creatures without necessarily having to pay equip cost, so I'm excited to see if this has an impact. I'm not 100% sure it will, but that is just because of my limited knowledge in the equipment realm of Pauper, because I haven't seen a really prevalent equipment deck pop up. Maybe it's just been missing enough valuable and usable equipment to pull it off, and Volshock Battle Gear might be the card that pulls it off. Or it might be the next card we're going to talk about. Brass Knuckles. From Streets of New Capenna, this 4-mana artifact is also an equipment that says when you cast the spell, copy it. The copy becomes a token. Equipped creature has double strike as long as 2 or more equipment are attached to it, and Brass Knuckles has the equip cost of 1. So, just mentioning Volshock Battle Gear and moving into Brass Knuckles, it definitely seems like there's some sort of equipment matters theme that they're either putting into Commander Masters Limited or are trying to fill out and enable in Pauper. There's several common equipment that have seen play, like Bonesaw is ready. Has seen play in a couple of different Boros builds, gives a sacrifice artifact effect for several different costs for very, very low cost. 0 mana artifact, 1 for the equip on Bonesaw. But Brass Knuckles, giving creatures double strike if they have 2 or more equipment. The other equipment is already going to give some sort of boost. Volshock Battle Gear just itself gives +3/+3. So giving +3/+3 and then additional double strike on top of it seems really good. And you can just put both Brass Knuckles on the same creature and give that one creature double strike. So you got options here. Brass Knuckles might actually aid in filling out that Artifact Equipment Matters deck in Pauper. The next card I want to talk about is the last card we're going to talk about in this series of videos, and that is Firemind Vessel. This 4-mana artifact was originally printed in War of the Spark at Uncommon. It enters the battlefield tapped, but you can tap it to add 2 mana of different colors. Another mana rock for the format, this one adding mana of different colors, is very interesting and may enable some more multicolored strategies in the format. A lot of what we've seen so far in the Downshifts have been cards that enable a little more focus on individual colors and maybe even onto guild pairs, like Golgari and Dimir and Boros, those sort of things. So Firemind Vessel being the Ravnica artifact, the Ravnica mana rock, seems pretty sweet and pretty fitting to go ahead and downshift it to common, to give Pauper access to it, to maybe open up some archetypes that make use of multiple mana. Me, for one, when I see this card, I'm thinking Tron. I want to play this in my Mystical Teachings Tron deck. I think that tapping an Urza's Mine and an Urza's Power Plant to be able to put this onto the battlefield to give my mostly colorless mana base access to mana of different colors seems super cool and super crucial, especially since recently we've gone through the loss of not only Arkham's Astrolabe, but also Prophetic Prism as ways to produce multiple colors of mana for mana of generic type or colorless. So I'm excited to see Firemind Vessel for some sort of Mystical Teachings Tron deck. That being said, that's going to round out our review of all of the downshifts that are showing up in Commander Masters. Are there any of them that excite you or that have got your eye? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, please subscribe, hit that bell, and make sure you get notified anytime I put something out. Hopefully you've got some sort of ideas going. Hopefully this series of videos has helped get the wheels and maybe some innovation happening. So yeah, until next time, folks, keep cooking.